Welcome to this hybrid meeting of Social Services Scrutiny Committee on the 25th of November 2025. I am Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy and I will be chairing this meeting. Before we move on to the next agenda item, please note that this meeting will be recorded. Please can you ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. When asked to raise your hands, members who are virtually viewing this meeting, raise your electronic hand, and members who are in the room, please raise your physical hand.
So check, can I stop you for Councillor Harris at them, Judge? I don't know if there was
No,
a problem.
she's shaking now. No,
Okay.
she's waving. For those members virtually viewing this meeting, please can you keep the chat function for urgent IT issues and not for questions or comments. I wish to remind members when signing in remotely of the legal obligation to have their cameras switched on during the meeting, please, in order to be seen and heard while participating in council business. Officers are reminded they are free to leave the meeting following their item. We're not due to have a fire drill, so should the fire alarm sound during the meeting, please make your way to the nearest exit. For the purpose of the recording, please can we go around the table and introduce yourselves for the benefit of the recording and members at home, please.
Councillor Helen Kerry Clark, I'm Vice Chair.
Good afternoon, Kerry Warren, Head of Children's Services.
Good afternoon, Victoria Smith, Principal Officer, Children's Services.
Good afternoon, Sarah Jones, Principal Officer, Adult Services.
Good afternoon, Angela Thomas, Head of Adult Services.
Good afternoon, Claire Jones, Strategic Manager, Partnerships and Community Cohesion.
Hello, I'm Shelley Howard, the Head of Housing and Communities.
Good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Jarrett, I'm the Director of Social Services, Housing and Community Safety.
Good afternoon, members. Pamela Chivers, Democratic Services.
Thank you, everyone. Now I will go straight on to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. If any members have declarations of interest to make, please can you indicate now.
I can't see any declarations, Chair.
Agenda item 3, minutes of... Oh, sorry, Stephanie.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm not sure it will come up, but just in case during the first agenda item, I'm a trustee at Women's Aid Thrive Domestic Abuse Services, just in case the issue of temporary accommodation comes up.
Thank you, Councillor Grimshaw.
Minutes of previous meeting, you will see in your minutes attached at pages 5 to 12 of your agenda pack. If you feel these minutes are an accurate record of the meeting, can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? If members do not wish to indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that these minutes are approved.
I propose.
Can I have a seconder, please, because I wasn't present at that meeting.
I'll second.
Carol? Oh, Oliver, thank you.
I can confirm that I can see no indication of the contrary, so those minutes are approved.
Agenda item 4, to consider items from the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. There are no items from the Cabinet Cabinet Forward Work Programme for consideration. Agenda item 5, we will consider now from the Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme, and we will now move to consider the reports as selected by this committee for consideration from the Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. A lot of forward work programmes for that in one sentence. So that agenda item 5A, and I think it's not just this item, but it's all items today are for information only if there's no decisions to be made, which is quite nice actually, isn't it? It's a nice change. So again, we go straight into agenda item 5A. It's on the unaccompanied asylum seeking children. This then so okay, yeah. So please can officers obviously give us a bit of a briefing on this item, please.
Yeah, just to introduce Vic Smith, who's Principal Officer, Children Looked After and leads on unaccompanied asylum seeking children. And I'll hand you over to Vic to give the highlights of the report.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Chair. So we've been supporting unaccompanied asylum seeking children now for some time. It is an area that is developing practice for us in Neath Talbot. It's a scheme that's mandated by the Home Office, so each local authority in Wales have been requested by the Home Office to support children and young people And that came about given how most young people arrive into Kent, and about Kent being oversaturated, I guess, with supporting young people. So the scheme was around looking at spreading out throughout the UK. So there's similar schemes in Ireland and in Scotland as well. There are pros and cons to the schemes. So whilst it does give children and young people a lot of diverse opportunities across the UK, very often young people want to be in cities. So really struggle in kind of quite rural country areas. So I guess we've seen that by some of the cities already being cities of sanctuary, like Swansea, Newport, Cardiff. So we are later to be supporting. Having said that, we've successfully supported 39 children and young people to date. Initially, we were asked to support 2, and that's obviously grown over time. There's been times where we've been asked to support more young people, and it's been quite a quick succession of young people coming to us to support. Having said that, of late, the last summer compared to the summer before was quieter. So we had less referrals through this year than we did the year before. All young people that have come to us have been male. Most young people that come into the country through this pathway through Kent are male. And as I said, they're all the young people we've supported. We support them in foster care and in supported accommodation arrangements as well. So it is, as I said, an area that we are learning. It's an area that people feel very passionate about and really want to support. It's something that we've done as part of core business. We have had dedicated YPA and support workers as well. We've also worked closely across the directorate. Claire, who's got much more experience in this area, was integral to our support very early on, and making sure that we have consistent messages across the directorate as well, which was really important. It's not been without its challenges for our multi-agency partners as well. We hold multi-agency meetings on a monthly basis to pull everybody together. So obviously there's an impact on health, on education, and on housing. So health is obviously young people turning up and needing their health needs met, and there have been some issues. So we've had young people who've had TB and then treatment programs for them, which isn't kind of normal, I guess, practice for most of our health visiting services. So there's specialist workers in health now dedicated to support this cohort of young people and adults that have come through. Education challenges. Most young people go through into college placements within MPT colleges and in Swansea. And there is grant funding in order to support them in college arrangements. However, that has been difficult because they've been competing with other cohorts like Ukrainian families that have come in and adult families. So it's been an area that's been a little bit difficult. I guess going forward for us, one of the big issues is around housing. So we've been working really closely with Shelley and her team as well about looking at developing those housing pathways. So that's going to be the next big piece of work that we need to take forward.
Okay, thank you. I'll come straight to you, Helen.
Okay. Is it just the luck of the draw that we've ended up with all males? I know that you said there was more males come in, but we could have potentially had females.
We could have. They're nearly all young people that transfer through are men. I think it's very dangerous for young women to move into the country in this way. When young women have come over, they tend to come over with their siblings. So if they've got male siblings or cousins, but it is a really dangerous for the young females to come over. So that's why there's less. We've not had a female recover through. And I know some of our neighbouring local authorities have, but it's rare, the nearly all men.
My other question is, what's being done to welcome? I know what you've put in your report, but welcome and integrate them. So, for instance, are there football teams that they can join and things like that? We were talking in pre-briefing about perhaps if they felt more integrated and more part of the community, they'd be less likely to want to go to the cities if they've made friends. And so, what are you doing? Can you give some examples of what you're doing?
Yes, of course. It's a really good question, really good observation, and it's an area that we discuss really frequently as well. And there is this draw to live and to be in cities for whatever reason. So we work closely with our regional partners in Swansea, and we've got projects across the region as well. So we've worked closely with third sectors as well, third sector organisations like East, for example. We've also, our participation and engagement officers been really key. So we've had those consultation events. we've done partnership work with Swans football team because a lot of young people have enjoyed playing football. So we were mascots down in the Swans, and we've supported with just integration into local activities, community-based hubs. But it is a challenge. We've also reached out to local religious organisations as well to support religious needs and support within the communities as well. So it's a work in progress, and it's on our agenda every time we meet, really, about how we can reach out further, I think, into the third sector is the key going forward, really. And about the young people helping new arrivals then that come. So we've been working on enhancing our welcome offer and our welcome booklet. So we've Dan's, who's our participation engagement officer, has just done a piece of work with young people who we have supported to date about what they think is important or what they wish they knew, or how can they support and integrate. So we've had some interpreters who have done some cooking lessons with the young people and really looked at kind of cultural differences. So work in progress, but one we're keen to pursue.
Oliver? Oliver, oh yeah,
I was having trouble. My mouse wasn't reacting. I believe my question's coming up in private, Charlotte.
No, it was about the refunded by government question.
Oh, yeah. When there's grant funding for these asylum seekers and everything, does it come through automatically, like monthly, or do you have to come out of your own budget and wait for the money to come through?
So it's Home Office funding. So we get funding per young person that arrives with us. So when a young person arrives with us, we work with our colleagues in finance and there's a set arrangement for going back to and claiming the money from Welsh Government, so from the Home Office, sorry. So our finance colleagues take care of that. It's not been raised as an issue for us from our finance department. So I think it's a bit of a machine. So, but every young person that arrives with us, we then there's a set amount for each young person that's sent out to local authorities. So it is something that's part of routine now.
Oh, you get paid.
But it's a kind of a complicated finance process, really.
I mean, the reality is, as part of this national transfer scheme, we are put under some pressure, and the Home Office is very keen for us to host youngsters as soon as possible. So there's an incentive, financial incentive, through looking after youngsters identified as quickly as possible. We've not always been able to manage that because we match young people, we match children with carers, we match children in supported arrangements depending on their need. So it does go against the grain, having to do all of that at speed. So despite the financial incentive, if we've not been able to do that safely, then that's what we've told the Home Office. But as Vic has said, the numbers, for whatever reason, are reducing. So they've slowed right down compared to what we've had previously. In terms of finances, it isn't an issue for us. It is a well-oiled machine where the paperwork goes in and it's a process and the Home Office will pay. It doesn't, they wouldn't benefit from not paying for, local authorities for looking after and accompanying youngsters because it's in their interest for that to happen and for it to happen quickly.
Are you happy with that, Oliver?
Yeah, thank you very much. It seems a very complicated process, but we got to stick with it because I said it's handed to us. It's not something we took by choice.
Okay, if I can bring Councillor Rosalind Davis in, please.
Does the funding received cover all the costs of the authority?
So the funding is set per young person when they are under the age of 18. So there is a different funding for if they are under 18 to if they're over 18. The funding it kind of works itself out really. There are variables in that around costings if we have to look at commissioning maybe more specialist placement. So we have had some young people who've needed quite significant high levels of support, where we've had to look at more of a specialist arrangement for that young person to ensure that their needs are met, because these are all young people who've arrived with huge history of trauma. Just even the journey in itself is really complex. The promises they're given from people who traffic them into the country, and then the reality of arriving is sometimes very different. So there's calculations based on that, but the way the funding is, and especially if we're able to place sooner, gives us that kind of buffer really to support into the long term. So it's something that we regularly review, we regularly look at and keep check with our budget with our accountants, so that if there was to be an issue, I would be able to flag that up to Kerry and Andrew. But at the moment, there's not an issue. There's it's managed within the specific I guess grant monies that we have to support these young people.
Do you want to come back on that, Rose? Are you happy?
Happy, diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Carol Gemma Williams, please?
Thanks, Chair. Please bear with. Two questions for me, really. There's a number of times in there it says about targets. You know, we've got to produce the goods, so to speak, within so many days. I'd be interested in knowing how many we hit, how many we missed, and any sort of snags or problems we've come up against, because it's lovely and it's great what we're doing, and it's all a very nice lovely report, but there must be stumbling blocks. It'd be interesting to know how we deal with that, and how do we ensure that these young people aren't influenced by people cuckooing and things like that and getting into on the wrong side of things, should I say? Do you mind? I'm going to turn my my mic off, Chair.
Okay.
I mean, that's a very good question, Councillor, and all of those things are possible and would be likely if we weren't able to support youngsters in Neath Talbot in the way that we are. So the way that we sort of wrap around support does reduce the chances of that happening, and we manage risk as well as we can. But you're absolutely right, as I said earlier, it's not the usual way in which we would support youngsters through an assessment, through a matching process, through links with their communities and friends and school and all of the things that youngsters here take for granted. Whereas all of that becomes more problematic and as such riskier when, you know, youngsters have come into the country in the way that Vic has described. So they are at greater risk of exploitation, and, you know, it's down to the dedication and sort of hard work of the staff that, you know, that means that we've had better outcomes than we probably could have wished for. Certainly in the early days, and as Vic mentioned, we've been doing this now for a little while, we had youngsters run away. So we had youngsters that were missing, and although we were able to track them very quickly, I think the tragedy is young people were very resourceful in that they got a long way in a very short period of time, but they were going to the closest thing I think they knew was home, which was back to Kent or back to where they'd been in long-term placements prior to coming to Neath Talbot. So this is mandatory. So every local authority in Wales is involved in this national transfer scheme. So we have to do the best we can in the situation we find ourselves in. But I'll hand you over to Vic to kind of give some more detail to some of that.
So back to the, I guess, the first part of your question, we are notified, so we're usually given a very short time frame, so we don't know very much information at all. Sometimes it's a paragraph on a piece of paper that's emailed over to our placements officer. So if we don't comply with the order, the director receives a letter from the Home Office saying that we've not complied with the order, and we have to show what reasonable steps we've done to comply. And then we are under pressure in order to do that in a timely way. We have always managed to put a plan together. We have been a little bit later on occasions and gone slightly out of the time frames, but I guess in response to that, what we do is we write to the Home Office with an explanation of why we've not been able to achieve that within the timeframes that we've had. We also working, as I said, with our regional partners in Swansea as well, and we're part of a multi-agency meeting with our partners across the whole of the region as well that looks at some of these issues, because there is, whereas we are asked to support young people, so are all of our kind of neighbouring local authorities as well. And sometimes people get on harmoniously and sometimes they don't. And sometimes within the cohort of young people, there can be differences of opinion, and there can be issues that grow and can be of concern. So those things are monitored on a regional basis as well. And we've got dedicated support staff who just work with this cohort of young people as well, and are able to map out the concerns if there are any. And we endeavour to match where we can. And there are young people. So all the young people who come to us could all speak different languages, speak from completely different places, have different interests, different religious backgrounds. So that can be quite tricky to do that. So we have to just do the best that we can with what we've got sometimes.
You happy with that, Carol?
Yeah, thanks. It would still be interesting to see how many we hit and miss, and I don't know. I'm just curious as to some of the stumbling blocks that we have, because obviously as councillors we also get access to AMs and MPs, and if there are specific things that are an issue, it would be good to know about it so we can. I know you pass things up to government, etc., but it doesn't help. It doesn't harm. If there's other voices behind that. Thanks, Jack. Thanks.
Can I just come back with
Yeah,
a question?
okay.
So we have housed every young person that we've been asked to house. There will be probably 2 or 3 that's been slightly outside the time frames, but we have housed everybody that we've asked to.
Fabulous, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Sian Freegard, please.
Oh, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on what you said, Vic, about not complying. And I would have thought that we had perhaps strong reasons if we didn't comply. And I wanted to delve into that. And I'm not sure whether you can answer that here or in the private item. My second question was picking up on Roz's and Ollie's point about the finances. And I may have missed it, so apologies if I have. But the detail of what we actually get from the Home Office to cover costs, I would be interested in to know the finite details of the finances, so that as a committee we can look at exactly what incentive, as Kerry said, is there.
Yeah, we would be happy to bring a paper back in private in relation to the sort of the detail of the finances, if that's helpful. And we could bring
Yes.
Beth and McGillian, the group accountant, perhaps to do a short paper for you that would give that detail.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kerry. I think that really is important. In fact, I think it's essential. I think it's one of the, it's really important for the committee that we see that. But I don't understand why it's private. Why would it be private?
We'll go on and we'll actually ask that in the private session.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's attached to this report, and this report is not private. So I just think that's it's a bit unclear as to why finances would be private.
Yeah,
It's
we
public-
want that in the private, because
public
obviously that
money.
is under Shillane. And
But Kerry was talking about
Very good.
incentives,
Yeah.
and as a committee, we can't see what the incentives are unless we have the costs.
right. Sian, I just want to bring Andrew in a minute.
Yeah, so we'll have a look at that, Councillor Freegard. So we will present you with the figures. We will see whether we can do that in public.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, happy with that, Sian, yeah? Stephanie, sorry, I nearly forgot you got a little corner. Sorry, Steph.
That's okay, don't worry about it. It was just a quick question in regards, so the report mentions that most children and young people get housed in supported accommodation rather than foster care. Obviously these children and young people have gone through trafficking, really horrendous journeys that I wouldn't like to imagine. What kind of, the report doesn't really go into detail about what kind of support is available to them. It talks about the support workers and things like that, but when they're put into that kind of supported accommodation, how do we make sure that those kind of safeguarding needs are being met, and what kind of goes on kind of, I know you can't give specifics, but day to day to make sure the children and young people are kind of well in terms of both their physical health and their mental health?
Yeah, really good question. And I guess some of the young people we support can be under the age of 16. So I think we've supported from the age of 14. Some young people are 17 when they come to us, and some are age disputed as well. So some of our older young people might actually be over 18 and age disputed. So they've all got different levels of need. So I guess we do an assessment really quickly to try and work out what that level of support looks like, because a lot of the young people, their support needs levels do differ. Some from being very, very independent and could well be older than what they say to being very quite young and vulnerable. And then we'd look at, we've got access to kind of therapeutic support. We work closely with our colleagues in CAMS, mental health services, because we do have some young people who have presented as quite unwell and need some quite specialist support to support their needs. So I guess it would be on an individual basis, and we work out, there's a lot of effort to work out really quickly about the needs of that young person, and then we adjust things as well. So if we think we've put in support and then they don't actually maybe need that level of support, then that's reviewed, or the other way around. So it will be under constant reviews, and because they are classed as being care experienced children, young people, they would also have children looked after reviews. So we'd have an IRO, an independent reviewing officer, overseeing their care plan as well, and then that would move to a pathway plan review then when they're 18. So there's a kind of an independent eye then looking at their care plan as well. So that gives us extra levels of safeguard. And our commissioning teams are involved as well, and monitoring, etc.
Okay. And do you want to come back on that, Stephanie? Are you happy? Yeah.
I suppose just kind of narrowing down on the trafficking aspect. I'm sure we do things, but what kind of things do we do to kind of make sure that those children and young people are still, when they're in Neath Port Talbot, not being taken advantage of, or is that kind of done before they get to Neath Port Talbot?
I guess that's part of the work that we do with them. Children and young people come in under all different ways and means. So we have, because they're young people who arrive as what they call spontaneous arrivals, so not through the National Transfer Scheme as well. So we do have literally, we had one young person in Neath Port Talbot, so it happens in Swansea quite frequently, where they are literally found at the side of the M4. And then we need to be supported. And then at that point, we don't know anything because they've not had any interviews. So what normally happens is the Home Office they have staff within Kent predominantly through the scheme, and then they have an initial interview where they try to gather as much information. Sometimes it can be quite scripted, and you can see referrals that they're huge similarities and they feel very scripted. But it's about, I guess, building up those relationships and discussing, as Perry said earlier, we have had young people who've gone missing. And that is a worry. It's always a worry when young people go missing, and for lots of different reasons. So one young person who literally went back to Kent, wanted to be back in that area. And then we've had other young people when we have been concerned about, are they being exploited? And then we would follow our safeguarding processes, and we would, work closely with the police and look at how we support those young people as well. So there's kind of safeguarding forums that are set up as well. So we would look at reporting all of them. There's also quarterly meetings from the Home Office, so everybody across Wales get together, and then we discuss kind of themes. We'll discuss kind of legislation, best support practice, good practice. We also, it's a bit of a lessons learning forum as well, when things haven't gone maybe as well as what we'd hoped. So it's an area where we're forever learning. So it's newer to us, not as new anymore, but it's still an area where we're constantly developing.
Are you happy with that? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much. That's really interesting.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. This report is for noting, and I'm going to move straight on to agenda item 5B. This report is also for information. Please can officers provide a brief update, please, on that. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, I'm having technical issues today, so it knocked me out when I was on the declarations of interest. I got a personal interest in 5B. My mother's just been discharged from Morriston Hospital and is under the community wellbeing team. Thank you.
Declare. Katie's worker. In the CWT, isn't she?
The declaration, Chair.
I think he said it. Also, I want to declare that my daughter, Kid Gonzi, actually works for the CWT team also. That's thrown me now, that was. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, over to myself.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, this is an update report on the progress and the ongoing work to improve hospital discharges in Neath, Talbot. 3 key areas we've been focusing on: the reablement unit in Tremor, which has been renamed Neath and has finally opened its doors on the 17th of November, and we've had our first admission. The reduction in delayed bed days and the right sizing of domiciliary care packages. When we brought this paper to you in January 2024, there were approximately 100 people sitting in hospital beds waiting packages of care. So these are people who've been assessed as requiring packages in the community, and they sit on a list waiting for agencies to come and take them off the list. Today, I'm pleased to tell you we're into single digits. Single digits, none of that's thanks to me. I have to say to Sorrel and her teams, they've absolutely turned that around. So yeah, happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, excellent. In briefing, we didn't have any questions, so this might be quite straightforward because I might ask a question then, as Sorrel is here, and we have got questions coming in. How did you actually turn it around?
So we've looked at the whole process really. So we've looked at what were causing some of those delays in our steps and processes within the hospital. The work we've done with the community wellbeing team has been significant in relation to changing the tide of this really. So previously, if an individual needed a package of care, they would go through the hospital assessment team, wait to be allocated, have that assessment within the hospital before being discharged. Now, if this straightforward request, if there's complications, it's a little bit different, but if there's straightforward requests, they go straight out to our community wellbeing team where they're supported in the community, have their package right sized before moving on to external providers. We had seen that that's been the biggest difference that we've been able to make with the social workers are following up in the community instead of pre-discharge from the hospital. And that's also following sort of discharge and recover, then assess guidance really, rather than trying to assess from the hospital site. So that's been probably the biggest change that we've seen. But we know there's still some way to go. We know there's still areas we're trying to improve on that system. But that's definitely been the biggest turnaround.
Excellent, that's excellent work, that is. Well done. Right, who's number 1? Okay, Joe.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to say what a fantastic facility this is, and it's going to be better. I was up there a couple of weeks ago to a fete with Sorrel, and I was speaking to the manager, Debbie, and they're so happy that now their jobs are secure, and we're also opening the bungalow and the centre. So for somebody's coming in there that's going to be doing physiotherapy, and the reablement centre is absolutely, it's going to make such changes for people to come out and go there and come out of a hospital much quicker. So I want to say thank you to Sorrel and the team, and Angela, of course, for turning this around, and it's just been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, straight into Rosalind Davis, please.
I was just wondering how it's working now. I couldn't move the cursor. How many people can be accommodated in this unit?
18 people in the residential home and 12 beds in the reablement unit.
And that covers the whole of Neath Talbot, doesn't it? Because it says it covers all roads. It's going to be difficult if you've got somebody there and they live in another valley. Difficult for them to visit them. Have you thought of that?
I think, yeah, if we can just explain to Roz how obviously the hospital to home, or not home, but into a residential setting where it obviously waits and that, because Roz in briefing wasn't quite sure of the system going into a care home. Not just from hospital, but into a care home. It's not a catchment area that people go into a care home.
Well, first and foremost, people have a choice, so people can decide where they want to go. That's part of the Act. So people aren't told where they're going. In terms of this facility, it is county-wide. We don't envisage that people will be staying in the reablement unit for longer than 6 weeks. It's up to 6 weeks. But it is a facility that's been sorely missed in Talbot, which is why we've got so many people. Our residential beds are full, and there's been no opportunity or very little opportunity for people to return to their own home. So whilst it's county-wide and it is in Neath, it was a win-win for us in as much as we've been under threat of closure for a number of years now. So yeah, I mean, transport, etc., we haven't had any issues with that yet. If we do, we'll obviously bring that back. Come in December, you're going to get a full review in front of you of the domiciliary care service and what we're doing differently next year. So we'll pick those things as we go along, but there's been no issue. I know it's early days, but no issues yet.
Okay, if I can just say as well, so if someone now, obviously in the Neath Valley, would prefer to obviously go to Tremaglen, but there's no space, and they've obviously got to go into a different care home, obviously, is there a system then where they can then come back into Tremaglen?
There is, but that will be very closely monitored by a social work assessment, because it's not a good thing to move old people numerous times. Yeah, so you always trying to accommodate people in their first choice of home. That would always be the case. But there's often a waiting list for the nice shiny bubble homes, you know. But then you do get a lot of people saying, no, I'd rather go to the one in Midland East. So, you know, it's choice first.
Yeah. Okay. Are you happy with that, Ross? Okay, great. Alan?
Yeah, just very briefly, Chair, and obviously just to note that Tremaglen, as it was one of the facilities which was previously outsourced from the council. It's now being brought back in to the council, and has been re-envisaged really for a combination of purposes. And you know, it shows that where it's the right decision, we're very happy to bring facilities back in-house to the authority. This is a real boost to the services we're providing in Neath Talbot, and there's been a huge amount of work behind it. I know this had its frustrations, and you know, I'd like to, you know, I'm sure to Angela and Sorel that we'll like to thank all the teams that have been involved in bringing it back in and being recommissioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Right, I can't see any other questions now, and so we're going to go. This report is for Norton. Agenda item 6, there's no performance monitoring items for consideration today. We go straight into agenda item 7. We will go through the Cabinet Forward Work Programme, and Pamela, I'm bringing up, please.
Yes, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'll just give you a few changes to the Forward Work Programme. Firstly, the Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. Domiciliary Care Service Update Report has moved from today's meeting to the 11th of December. With regards to the 22nd of January meeting, the development of triage services has been requested by the Chair to come to that committee for pre-decision scrutiny before it's considered by Cabinet. The 22nd of January, report entitled Children's Commission Services has been renamed. So it will now show on the forward work programme as the remodel of overnight short break services for children with disabilities. And the Alliance APP progress report has been removed. This will be included in the work of the Western Bay Drug Commission update report. With the agreement of the Chair, the Western Bay Drug Commission update report that was scheduled to come in March 2026 will instead come in June 2026, which will allow sufficient time for works to be undertaken. And then there was one report that's been added to the Cabinet Forward Work Programme, 16th of December. It's the National Joint Committee for National Adoption Service for Wales. I've been advised this is an administrative report and there's no policy change or anything of concern. But if members have any questions, please can you let us know.
I see none. So agenda item 8, we have no urgent items. Agenda item 9, we will now need to consider the private proposal included on the agenda. As you can see on the agenda, the private paragraphs is there for everyone to read. I will propose, can I have a seconder to move into private, please?
One second.
Are there any abstentions?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, I will take it that this motion is supported.
Chair, I can see no indication to the contrary, so this motion is supported.
Can I please ask that any public or press in attendance now exit the meeting, and can the recording be stopped?
Just bear with me, Chair, I'll just confirm